Oh, it's just, man, when you put your hair in a ponytail, you get less. That's sad. Oh, well, it's just like I have really big ears. Kind of do, so it's okay. It works out. It's fine, whatever. Okay, let's go. Okay, so in the coming weeks, in case I don't post a video, which is, there's a slight chance, because I'm going to a natural health practitioner, I suppose it's called. Tomorrow, I go to her quite frequently. Okay, like once or twice a year, for just some kind of tune-up, because I don't feel super great all the time. Right now I'm having breathing issues, which I have most every spring, and sometimes summer, and sometimes winter, and it's where I can't get a deep breath sometimes, and that's a really miserable feeling, and it seems to be possibly related to, the changes outside. This might be my form of allergies. I don't necessarily get plugged up, although I have been for the past, 2 months. Kind of living on Attribution, thank goodness for that stuff, because I don't know if it's just, it was like I had a cold and then the stuffiness won't end, so I constantly can't breathe out of my nose, so I use my nasal spray and that helps, thank goodness, but my breathing is still having issues. So I'm going to see this person tomorrow, and I thought I should do this video before that, just in case I don't feel good after. I don't think I usually feel worse after, but in case I do, I'm just gonna get this video out, or get this video done before that. So I'm gonna try to keep filming, but just in case I don't, next week or 2 weeks, it's because I'm not feeling great and I just need to recuperate and whatever, so there you go. And this actually works on the topic of what I'm talking about today, because I've had quite a few health issues in my life. When I was younger, I got bit by a tick, and I got Lyme disease from that. I literally almost died. I was hardly eating. I was already very skinny, and then I just kept getting skinnier, and I just spent a month or two on the couch just feeling like absolute death. And thank goodness I found someone who did help me, and I think I still have Lyme disease, but I don't have the symptoms for the most part. I'm living just fine with it, but I think there are a lot of side effects that come with it that I deal with, so I'm not a perfectly healthy person, but for the most part I feel amazing compared to how I used to feel. And then I had about a year ago, I thought I had MS, multiple sclerosis, which is a terrifying prospect. I was having numbness and tingling and twitching and stuff in my limbs, and that is a telltale sign of MS, which, by the way, do not Google your symptoms because it's terrifying. I probably would have been fine if I hadn't looked it up, but it terrified me, and I got so sick because I was just flat out terrified that I had it. And then I read online that Lyme disease has the same kind of symptoms, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to die from MS. I'm not gonna have to live with MS, really. So I was terrified of that. I didn't go to any doctors for that, because in the past, when I had Lyme disease and various other ailments, doctors would tell me that I was basically faking it. They told my mom that I was just looking for attention, so just let me lay on the couch for as long as I want. I just want to watch TV, and so just let me, get that out of my system. I almost died, and they told me it was all in my head. When I had a job, literally my only real job, I worked at Walmart for a little while as a cashier, and I was having pain, and I was so tired, and I felt like crap. Went to the doctors to get a doctor's note. The same doctor who told me it was all in my head wrote on my doctor's note, "I have seen this body." A doctor's note is supposed to say that this person is actually sick. But no, he just saw me, because he didn't believe me. I had fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and I was miserable, and my doctor didn't believe me. And that has been the case for most of my life. Ooh, there's the ears. Okay. I have absolutely no use for doctors. Not to say that they can't help in emergency situations, and they're not incredibly talented people, but I have not had a good personal experience with them. And so, I go to natural practitioners who have actually helped me, and I am a huge fan of the natural routine, because I think God actually, made plants and herbs that are supposed to help us, and I've had a lot of help from herbs and stuff like that, so I'm a big fan of that, and I'm not a big fan of doctors. So I kind of relate to the woman we're talking about today, who is, simply known as the woman who bled. What a terrible title. Can you imagine going through life as the woman who bled? Or I guess not going through life, people didn't probably call her that then, but in the future, being only known as the woman who bled, it's yeah, every woman bleeds, but this poor woman did not have any relief from that. So there's nowhere in the Bible that says how old this woman is. It's only said that she had the issue of blood for 12 years. Which, as I was reading again today, it was funny. It hit me that the Jairus' daughter was 12 years old, and then this woman comes along who had, 12 years of bleeding. I'm not sure if there's some significance to that, but it happened on the same day. It's kind of interesting. So we know she's older than 12. Chances are good that she was, okay, in my mind, she was a young woman whose period started and it never stopped. That's kind of what I picture. Now, I don't know. There could have been, maybe she had a baby and the bleeding never stopped or something. We don't know what her real issue was. We just know that she was constantly bleeding. And in the Old Testament, it said that if someone is bleeding, a woman who bleeds, she is untouchable. She needs to be left alone in a room or whatever. And when she's done, she has to go make an offering, which we find very strange, that there's a sin offering for bleeding and for birth and all this stuff. It's very odd. We don't understand the Old Testament laws. There's a lot we don't understand about God, and we never will probably until heaven. But this is the way that the Jews viewed people who were on their period, women who were on their period, and just women who bled. And I don't think this was a common thing, that someone's period just didn't end, or someone just had bleeding for 12 years. I mean, okay, 12 years is an extremely excruciating long time to have bleeding. I mean, if my period lasted 12 days, I would be so unhappy. Because, okay, let's talk about periods, ladies and gentlemen. You can just sit aside and listen, because this is something we freaking have to deal with every month. And, okay, so your period starts, and let's say it keeps going and going and going and going, and there is no sign of it letting up. You're on day 1 or day 2 constantly, and it goes from 1 month and then into 2 months and 3 months, and before you know it, it's been a year and it's not ending. Now, in our society, you can hide that, right? You can wear tampons and pads and things, and no one needs to know. However, if you're in pain, it's really difficult to hide that. And thank God we now have painkillers and all this stuff that can actually help that. But in that time, they didn't. And so I have hope that this poor woman didn't actually have period pain to go along with it, that she was just bleeding for 12 years. I can't imagine if I had to deal with day 1 period cramps for 12 years. The woman was possibly suicidal. I cannot imagine. And again, she's untouchable. In the eyes of the Jews, she was forbidden. She was a sinful woman because, physical ailments and things like that were seen as punishments from God and punishments for sin. So, chances are good that when she started bleeding and didn't stop, if she was married, her husband would have been like, what sin are you hiding from me? What sin do you have that you have not, confessed to God? And she would have been like, I didn't do anything. This isn't me. This isn't a punishment. This is something my body is doing, and I don't understand it. But she would have been viewed as a sinful person who is, unrepentant probably. And if she was married, he probably would have divorced her, because he would have, been in his right, because she would never stop bleeding, so he couldn't be with her. So I'm guessing he would have probably gotten a divorce. I don't know if she had any kids. Honestly, I don't know how old she is. I picture her as a younger woman, but I don't know. And she was probably incredibly lonely. Chances are good she was homeless, because you can't have a job. You can't make money as a woman in that time. And even if you could, you wouldn't be able to work with anything, because anything you touched would have been called unclean. Just wrap your mind around the fact that this woman was untouchable and everything she touched was unclean. She had this horrible aura around her that people wouldn't touch her. She basically had a bubble around her. No one would come near her because she was a disgrace. She was unloved by God, they probably thought. She was sinful, and you cannot imagine the mindset this poor woman was in. And, the Bible tells us that she tried over and over and over again to get people to help her. She went to different physicians and none helped at all. She used all of her money on these things and not one treatment helped. In fact, it made it worse. Can you imagine? I'm annoyed with doctors. Can you imagine how annoyed she was? She spent all of her money trying to get her life back, and nothing worked. So the story of the woman with blood is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And Mark is my favorite version, so I'm going to read it from my Greek translation. I know all Bibles, all New Testaments are technically Greek translations, but this is supposed to be a better one, so I'm going to read it from that. So we have Jairus, and let's read. This is Mark 5. Did I write it down? Yeah, 25 to 34. Get your Bibles or just sit tight. Here we go. Okay, so this is before when Jairus asks him to come heal his daughter. And it says, and he went off with him, and there kept on following with him a large crowd, and they kept on pressing upon him, almost to the point of suffocation. We can read something like that, like Jesus was in a large crowd, and we don't really picture what it's like to be in a large crowd, and not just to be in one, but to be the center of that, to be what everyone is pushing in to see and to touch. It would be claustrophobic. It would be horribly claustrophobic if you had any sort of feeling like that. You'd feel like you were drowning, like you have air, but there's so many people pressing against you. And, you know, now would be the time to insert a sound effect of like a huge crowd. Okay, now imagine being in the center of that, being who everyone is trying to get at. And people are pushing against you, and you cannot walk almost because people are, you know, pushing constantly against you, and you're trying to walk, and people are just pressing into you. It'd be horrible. I can't, as a shy introvert, that just sounds like horrible things. Jesus was probably used to it at this point, but still. So here's the interesting thing. This woman comes amidst the crowd. Don't forget, she's untouchable, and if she lived in this city where Jesus was, then everyone there probably would have known her and would have known that she was unclean and no one should have touched her. But here she is pushing through this crowd, touching people, making them ceremonially unclean, and she just doesn't care because she wants to get to Jesus. Picture that, because like she's not allowed to touch people. Like legally, she's not allowed to touch people. She was just an outcast, and here she is pushing into this crowd, trying to get to Jesus. And a woman having come who had a flow of blood for 12 years, and had endured much suffering under the hands of many doctors, and had spent all of the things which she had, and was not even one bit improved, but rather grew worse. Okay, I'm pausing there even though it's a comma. She had spent all of the things which she had. Like, she'd spent her money, so now she had to spend her belongings. She was like trading things to get some help, and nothing helped. And she had nothing, and she was only worse. Like, can you even imagine how frustrated she was and angry and just... Like, you can imagine she would have been angry at God at this point, you'd think. Like, 12 years of this, nothing worked. I am sure that she was praying for relief. Nothing happened. And was not even one bit improved, but rather grew worse. Having heard the things concerning Jesus, having come in the crowd behind, touched his garment. For she kept saying, if I touch even his garments, I will be made whole. She knew, like, she had heard things about Jesus, and she knew that this guy was gonna help. She just knew it. Like, she had heard about lepers being healed and people, massive amounts of crowds, of people in crowds being touched and healed, and people just touching his clothes and being healed. Like, she knew, he's my last shot. But there was also this incredible element of faith that she thought, if I just touch him, I will be healed. Like, there was no doubt, which is amazing. This woman has more faith than all of us combined, I think. And immediately there was dried up the fountain of her blood. It's a very strange statement. And she suddenly came to feel in her body that she had been healed of her plague and was at that moment in a state of health. Again, imagine that. She has been suffering for 12 years, possibly with pain, but she didn't have tampons and pads. I mean, I don't know how people in the olden days did it, much less Bible times. I would hope they had some way of stopping it or helping in some way, but she didn't have the amenities that we have now, and she had to keep dealing with this. And finally, all of a sudden, she just touches this guy. Okay, here's a shirt of mine. No one has ever touched my shirt and been made well. Like, imagine, okay, I have MS. Like, I imagine that I have what I was most afraid of, and I've been suffering with it for years, and I'm getting worse instead of better. And this pastor comes in, and I've heard things about him, and I just, like, I shake his hand and I touch him, and I have complete feeling back. I have complete everything. I've been completely restored. Imagine what that felt like. Like, we cannot imagine. And it's funny, one of the things that bothers me the most in, like, movies and shows and everything about Jesus is that when someone is healed, they kind of have this reaction of, that's wonderful. Thank you, Jesus. No, they would have been over the moon happy. The only time that I've really seen this done justly is in the Gospel of Matthew, or the Gospel according to Matthew with Bruce Marciano, when the leper comes up to him and says, you know, if you are willing, you can heal me, and Jesus heals him. And the guy starts laughing, and he's just running around, he's overjoyed. He knocks Jesus over, who is like kneeling down to heal him, and he's just so happy. He's hugging him, and he's just squealing with delight. And it's the cutest thing, because Jesus is just there laughing with him, and he's so happy for him. That's the reaction that people would have had. They would have been shocked, completely shocked that it worked, kind of thing. But then to have that moment with Jesus where he's just as happy for you as you are to be healed, like, it's so beautiful. We have these stories of Jesus healing people, and we just picture it like, you're healed, go live in peace, my child. Jesus was not a stained glass window. He was a person. He had emotions. And can you imagine if you had the power to heal someone who was really sick? Like, imagine how incredibly happy you would be every time that happened. Like, it wouldn't get old. It would be incredible every single time. And Jesus got to experience this like thousands of times over. He would have been so like full of joy seeing the reactions that people had to being healed. And immediately, Jesus, having had a personal and clear knowledge in himself of the experience of power going out of him, in other words, he learned, over time that when he touched people, there was a feeling, there was almost like a jolt maybe, something that he could just feel power going to that person. It's an incredible thing to think about. And he noticed this. And again, we're in a crowd, sound effect again, of that many people, and he notices when one person takes power from him. How does he notice this? But I guess everyone around him wasn't being healed. He felt that power going to someone. He didn't feel it as, everyone around me is being healed. It wasn't like that. This woman was ordained to be healed that day, and he felt it. So he's pushing through this crowd trying to get through it, and all of a sudden he's like, wait, someone touched me, someone got healed, I know this. And everyone around him was like, are you kidding me? Do you see how many people, sound effect. Do you hear how many people there are around you? People are touching you all over. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, someone touched me and someone got healed, and I want to know who that is. So I stopped in the middle, but it says, in himself having the experience of power going out of him, having turned around in the crowd, was saying, who touched me on my garments? And his disciples kept on saying to him, you are seeing the crowd pressing hard around you from all sides, yet you are saying, who touched me? In other words, Jesus, are you kidding me? Look at everyone. Everyone touched you. How can you say that? And he's like, no, I know this. And he kept on looking around about to see the woman who had done this. And the woman, the poor woman, fearing and trembling, knowing that which had been done for her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. Okay, so the crowd at this point is like, someone got healed? Who got healed, right? They're aware of this now, right? Because Jesus was probably yelling above everyone, who touched me? So everyone maybe backs off a little bit to get some, to see what's going to happen. And this poor woman who has been untouched, who has been the exact opposite of the center of attention probably for a very long time. She probably just was homeless and sat on the side of a building somewhere and just had maybe a rag out that someone could put money on if they were being, nice that day, and she could actually buy some food or something. But she was not used to being the center of attention, and she probably expected, I'll just touch him, and if it works, I'll just slip away. No one needs to know. And here Jesus is like, wait! Someone touched me! Who is it? And she's like, oh crap. So she comes, and ever so bravely, even though she's fearing and trembling, so you can imagine how terrified she was, she comes up before him, and she bows down, and she just falls flat, right? She's just like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to excuse myself. I touched this man who is perfect and holy, and I made him unclean possibly, but he healed me. She falls down and she tells him everything. Lord, for 12 years, I have not had a relief from this. Nothing has worked. I've spent everything. I have nothing. And just touching you, I'm perfectly healed. Imagine, she was terrified, but she was just overjoyed. You cannot imagine how excited she was, even though she was completely terrified. And it doesn't say this. I kept looking. I looked in every version and everything, every, story in here. And nowhere does it say that Jesus touched her, but I picture him getting down on her level and helping her sit up and saying this. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has saved you. Be going into a state of peace and be continually sound in body, healed of your affliction. Okay, that sounds a little bizarre. Okay, so I picture him getting down, picking her up, and saying, daughter, you're healed. Because of your faith. You believed in me. You believed that I had the power. You believed that I'm the Son of God, and it worked for you. You're healed because of that. Bless you. I just picture him just hugging her and kissing her cheek or her forehead or whatever was, okay in that time. And being the first one in so long to embrace her and love her and touch her kindly and just be like, girl, you did it. You believed in me. And it worked. You're healed. You're completely healed. And if you go now, be at peace, because you are healed, and it's not going to come back. You're done. This is over. And don't forget, Jairus is standing on the side like, this is sweet. This is nice. Can you come heal my daughter now? Like, there's this urgency to go heal her. But Jesus just does a dead stop in the middle of this. He could have easily, just felt the power going out and be like, oh, somebody got healed. Good for them. And keep on going. But he wanted to make contact with this woman. He wanted to talk to her. And I think that's so sweet. We kind of see it as maybe like, why did he do that? It's kind of rude. Like, this poor woman was just trying to get away and he brings her to the center of attention and forces her to say what happened. But don't forget, everyone listening then heard exactly what happened. For 12 years, she was suffering, and with a touch, she was healed completely. Can you imagine if doctors had that power? Oh my goodness. It's like, oh, you're sick? Well done. There's a reason we call Jesus the great physician, because he was the best physician. He didn't need to use medicine or even herbs or anything. He was the best natural practitioner because the power just came from him. He had the power to heal just with a touch, not even with, a physical touch, but with his robes. It's incredible. Honestly, it's one of my favorite stories in the Bible of Jesus, because it's so tender. Amidst all of this chaos, this woman, like, it's not like she just popped on the scene. She was living in this city. She'd been dealing with this for so long. And it was over. In an instant, it was over because of Jesus, because he had that power and she had the faith. If she didn't have the faith, like, I wonder if she was just like, I hear about this guy. I guess I'll try him too. Maybe it'll happen. But, in her mind, she, like I said, over and over again, she was saying, if I just touch him, if I just touch his clothes even, I will be healed. There was no doubt in her mind, and it's an incredible thing. And I think so often we have this, we don't want to put too much faith in God because maybe it won't happen. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with putting your entire faith into God, putting everything you have into believing that he is going to heal you. He's going to heal someone you love. He can still do it. It's not like Jesus lost the power or like God just stopped healing. It's happening. There's a blue jay. I'm not kidding. He's even closer this time. Okay, he's gone. So, apparently my bush outside is a blue jay magnet. Sorry about that. 2 times in 2 weeks. Oops. It's incredible. Jesus is still healing people, guys. It's not like he just stopped. It's still happening. And you can pray with complete faith that he will do it. And if he doesn't, it's so easy to say, God doesn't love me because he didn't answer my prayer. These doubts arise, and that's probably from the devil. Oh, he didn't answer your prayer. He doesn't really love you. He's not listening to you. He doesn't care about you. God has a much bigger plan than we see. We see, and he's got everything. He sees the entirety of eternity, and we see nothing. And we think if God doesn't do this, he's not in control, or he's not strong enough, or he's not powerful enough, or whatever. He's got everything else going on, and it's not like he's ignoring you. He's saying no for a reason. But the best part is that he didn't say no to this woman. She had complete faith in him, and it worked out for her. Now, imagine this. She leaves, and she's like, what do I do now? I mean, the poor woman was probably just used to begging for food and money, and now it was like, I need to get a job. I gotta go find my husband and be like, hey, guess what? It wasn't my fault. Like, she had a life again. She didn't necessarily have her life back, because chances are good that her life kind of ended that day, that, they realized this isn't going to end, and something's wrong, and every physician visit, her life just slipped away more and more. But she had a new life. And it's so interesting that Jesus didn't say, I'm gonna die for you soon, and you just need to believe in me. He didn't try to convert her. It was as simple as, you believed in me. Hi, daughter. Like, you're a member of the family now. That's kind of why I picture that she's younger than him, because he was about 30 at that time, and I don't really picture him calling an older woman daughter. He may have. Maybe the word we have for daughter isn't proper. Maybe it was like woman or something, but there's such an affection to daughter. I don't call people daughter. If I did, if there was someone who I loved as much as a mother loves a daughter, or a father loves a daughter, picture that love. If you are a father or a mother of a son or a daughter, it doesn't matter, that intense love that you have, the protective nature that you possess, and the desire for that child to never be hurt or in pain. And Jesus got to see this woman that he loved. Like, he just instantly loved her, because he knew her in an instant. He knew her story. and he was able to see all of that pain go away and see the relief on her face. And it's such a beautiful thing. We just take for granted that Jesus healed people, and you know, we forget who these people actually were, that they had a life, they had a story. And Jesus got to just, for like a minute, he got to just see every person have this reaction to him. It would have just been so incredible for him as a human being to see people not suffer anymore. I think that's so beautiful. So yes, don't forget, if there is no video next week, I'm going to try, but if there isn't, it's just because I'm not feeling super great. And also my period is due, and I may just not feel up to doing that, so. Yeah, I said it. A Christian girl who talks about her period. Oh my goodness, call the po-po. I don't know why I get so stupid, but I do. And either way, I hope to see you next week, but in case not, I will see you when I see you. How's that for an outro? Bye guys!